Here we have our good brother, Dwight Johnson, and what he's going to do is be one of the ones who helps give us enlightenment on his experience, just in general, but his experience with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, particularly the Epsilon Lambda chapter. And so I just want to thank you, Brother Johnson, for allowing me to have your time to interview you to educate us, all of us brothers, about the history.
Hey, no problem, bro.
All right, all right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Tell us about your childhood.
Well, St. Louis is my home. I was born and raised here, born in 1948, January, and grew up in public schools, went to public schools. Um, I think the first significant emotional event I remember when I was in sixth grade, I was put into the gifted program, which meant that I had to go to school at Ashland School. For those of you who are familiar with St. Louis, you know it's on Newstead, about 2 blocks north of Natural Bridge. But at the time that I went to that school, Natural Bridge was like the dividing line for races in St. Louis. Natural Bridge and everything north of Natural Bridge was white. Everything south was black. And at that time that I was in the program, first day of school, we were informed that although school let out at 3:30, the bus came at 3:15. So the black students, there were 6 of us, I believe, would be dismissed at 3:10 so that we could catch that bus, because it wasn't a good idea to miss the bus and have to stand around. St. Louis was very racially divided back in those days. I distinctly remember, I think it was around 59, somewhere around in there, a woman was abducted. It was reported in the Globe Democrat and Post Dispatch that this woman had been abducted by 6 black men and held against her will and repeatedly raped over the weekend. My father, who was a short, fair-skinned brother, was picked up on his way home from the post office, where he worked at the United States Post Office, and was, at that time, the police in St. Louis were just rounding up blacks, everybody, black men. If they caught you out after dark, they were just taking you down to central booking. And my father was down there for about 8 or 10 hours, and until a supervisor from the post office came down and identified him. Even though he had his badge and everything, he had to come in order for my father to get out. It turned out the whole thing was a hoax. The woman had been shacked up with her boyfriend, scared to tell her husband, so she made up a lie. But that's the way St. Louis was in the late 50s and early 60s.
Now, you mentioned something that just stood out to me. You said Natural Bridge was the dividing line.
That's right.
Now, I'm born in 1980, right?
Okay.
And from those who were born a little bit before me, like my older brother and sister, my older brother was born in 71. My sister was born in 73, right? Now, from what I remember as a child, we always thought that Delmar was the dividing line. And we've seen riots about Delmar. So they're here in Natural Bridge. At this point in life, it was always north. To me, that was just north side. So that's interesting that you say that.
Well, there were several dividing lines, okay? Because we didn't go south of Delmar. Okay. We didn't go north of Natural Bridge. And I was into, my late teens, early 20s, before I even knew that there was a black community down in Carondelet, which is way south in St. Louis. Okay. St. Louis is just really, it's a different kind of place, I guess, is what you could say. But it was very, very racially divided back in the day. So,
yes,
I distinctly remember that. Fortunately, I was in that program for a while, When I got to 8th grade, I did not want to be in the gifted program. We were not welcome. Okay, that's the best way to put it. But in order for them to have the program, they had to have federal funding. In order for them to have federal funding, they had to have some minorities in it. So, but it was not a very pleasant experience. But fortunately, in 8th grade, I got out and went to Sumner High School. And
Bulldog.
I am a bulldog for life. Yes, sir.
Man, okay, so were you involved in, man, I always hear that's the oldest black high school on
West of the
Mississippi.
That's right.
Yes. Man, you know what? Were you involved in any activities at Sumner?
Yeah, I had a heart condition when I was a kid, so I couldn't really play sports until everybody else was playing when they were little kids and stuff like that. I started playing sports late, but I was much better with academics, and the fall before we graduated, me and 3 other students from Sumner High School, including David Hawkins, who was a brother, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. We were on something called Scholar Quiz, where the high schools competed against each other, and we competed against a private school that was fairly expensive at the time. I won't mention the name, but we held ourselves well. We beat them pretty bad.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we beat them pretty bad. So.
And that is the Ville area.
Sumner? Oh yeah.
Sumner's right in the Ville area, right?
Yeah.
Because again, I remember my aunt and uncle lived on the 4200 block of St. Louis Avenue. So I used to be able to look out the window.
Yeah.
Because they were right there on Lambda and St. Louis Ave. Tandy Park. My brother and my older cousin would oftentimes go up there and play ball. And as kids, you follow behind big brother and big cousin. So we'd be playing on the swings while they're hooping and everything. And I always heard that that was just, a historically black area where all of the professionals, whether you were an educator, lawyer, whatever, they all lived in the community. Now, were you a resident of Ville? You just lived nearby? Or?
I was living, I guess, in the Ville. I'm not sure. It might have been a little bit further south. Started out on Cook Avenue, and then we moved to Euclid. It was still in Sumner's district. But I'll just give a shout out right now, because I can say that from 1961 to 1965, Sumner High School had the best educators. And I believe they could hold their own with any school's educators anywhere. They were tough. They were fair. They were interested in teaching. They would use whatever tool psychologically necessary to get you to be the best you could be. I had a history teacher. I'll never forget. He told me, he said, "Johnson, you're a better student than you're showing me. I know you're a better student." And I said, "Well," I said, "I don't like history." And he said, "You don't? Why don't you like history?" I said, "It's boring. You got to remember all these dates and who did what, when, and where, 200 years ago, and blah, 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 blah." And he told me something that has always stuck with me. He said, "A man who knows history can predict the future."